All right, hello out there. This is Mike McCormack, co-producer and composer for The Shark is Still Working and some other films. And appreciate you visiting my channel and hitting the play button on an Orca commentary. Today, I'm joined with my friend and co-host of Movie Geeks United, Adam Long. How are you doing today, Adam?
Doing well, sir. I appreciate you having me on as a guest. This is a film we're going to be talking about that's near and dear to my heart, as it is yours as well, I think.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. So Adam and I, we did a King Kong 1976 video. You'll have to check out. But in that discussion, we spoke quite a bit about Orca, the killer whale from 1977, and we just thought it'd be fun to go back and visit this underrated classic film. And so we've got our Blu-ray copies of Orca synced up, and we thought it'd be easiest since the logos can kind of change depending on where you are geographically. We've got our videos paused right as the Dino De Laurentiis Presents logo appears at the very beginning of the actual film. So the Studio Canal Paramount Pictures logo have faded out. The movie started, and you'll see Dino De Laurentiis Presents there. And we'll go ahead and if you want to go ahead and pause the video here, and we'll count down to start in 3, 2, 1, starting on 1. So here we go. 3, 2, 1. And now we're playing. You can hear the cries of the killer whale.
hmm And then we hear the first stirrings of this wonderful Ennio Morricone score.
Yes.
Let's discuss that a little bit. That's one of the when you talk about Morricone, this is one of the scores that nobody really references in his body of work, and I just think this is beautiful. Oh, I'm noticing Ralph E. Winters was one of the editors on this. He was the cutter of the 1976 King Kong as well, so that's worth mentioning.
Oh, yes.
But Morricone had previously worked with Dino De Laurentiis on the Bible, I believe. Oh, Ted Moore, director of photography, also shot a bunch of the several of the early James Bond films. So
That's
those are,
right.
but anyway, Morricone first had uh, some interactions with Dino on the Bible back in the '60s, and he remembered him and asked him to come back for this one. And so just beautiful score. Now you have what? How are you watching this? I'm always curious about the formats that people have this film or have had this film over the years because you and I came of age at a time when, and we'll get to this later, when we had to make an appointment to see a film. You couldn't just go out to the video store and get it, so to speak. And that ties into my first viewing of this film. But how are you watching it at this as we discuss this film?
I've got the Scream Factory edition that came out a couple years ago. What
That's a
about you?
good choice. I have because Scream Factory. I wanted it really bad, and Scream Factory had not put it out at that point. I bought the Australian import from Umbrella Entertainment, which is a Region B. I have a multi-region player, which I'm watching this on. And Lee Gambon, whom I've had as a guest on Movie Geeks United several times, he did an audio commentary on this edition. I'm not sure if that ported over to the Scream Factory edition, but it's quite informative as his commentaries are wont to be. There's a lot of
Yes.
information there.
Yes, I think that commentary is on the Scream Factory. And I got to admit, just like you, I have the Umbrella copy as well. I couldn't wait either
Oh
prior
yeah.
to the Scream Factory coming out.
What other
Um,
extras do they have on the Scream Factory for people listening? And I'm curious too because I don't have it.
They don't really have a lot. As I recall, there's like the trailer, a commentary,
Mm-hmm.
and that's really about it. I don't have the copy like in my reach, but not a lot of bonus features. Um, but here we are. Now this was filmed up up in northern Canada,
Mm-hmm.
eastern Canada, I believe.
Probably saved some. Maybe got a little tax break there. Dino was always looking at the dollars and cents. So that's one of the reasons why he set up shop in my backyard here in North Carolina. And so he was always looking at a way to maximize the profits with as little financial input as possible.
So we have some shark footage here that was shot by Ron and Valerie Taylor, who of course worked on Jaws.
Yeah, I was getting ready
They
to
were
ask you about that.
they were the go-to people, and it's very effective how they've got looks like they've probably edited some different footage elements together to make that shark look like it's right there
Oh yeah,
with Charlotte Rampling.
yeah. What a great actors too. Still active as we record this,
Oh
and
yes.
I will. There's many great performances, but I think one of my favorites is in Woody Allen's Stardust Memories, which I think is still one of Woody Allen's greatest films that nobody seems to talk about. It was not really very well received at the time of its release. I think it's gained a little bit in status over the years, insofar as it could with all the hubbub surrounding Woody Allen as a person. But
But here, of course, we have to establish,
the
that
character.
killer whales are more, you know, deadly than great white sharks, of course, because everybody had Jaws on their mind, and
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, uh, that hampered this movie's success. I think a lot of people unfairly lumped this movie in with a lot of movies inspired or ripping off Jaws. Now, of course, this movie was probably made, of course, because of Jaws, but
Oh yeah,
I think it's artistically done. I think there's a lot of complexity to it, and it's really a special movie. Um, so, unfortunately, a lot of the reviewers just wrote it off, didn't give it the acclaim it deserves. But I know there's a cult of people out there, and hopefully they'll enjoy hanging out with us as we watch this.
yeah, and some great actors here. We'll go ahead and take a moment and talk about these folks. Staples of our childhoods, of course. Richard Harris, obviously, not only an actor, but let's remember he had a top 10 single in the late '60s. I think it was top five actually. MacArthur Park. So also a
That's
huge
right.
recording star as well as an actor who, I guess, for younger generations, he's known for his appearance in the early Harry Potter films before he passed away. But yeah, and of course, Bo Derek. This was her first film appearance.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, and we'll get into. We'll not spoil anything for anybody who's not seen the film. She has some interesting things that happen to her later on in the film. Uh,
That's right. Now here, this is just classic. Now, when I was a kid, I believe we were talking about, how this movie affected us as children, and I saw this movie when I was like three or four,
wow.
and this right here this stood out to me, the uh, the killer whale versus shark scene.
Hmm. Yeah,
And
that
there
is
we have Richard Carradine, who would later
Robert.
be
Robert, I
Robert
believe.
Car-
Yeah,
Robert Carradine, who eventually rose to stardom in Revenge of the Nerds.
that's correct, and has been in quite a few things, but yeah, he's definitely most notable there as Lewis, I believe, his character in the Revenge of the Nerds films. So yeah, he was kind of the youngest. Well, he's not kind of. He was the youngest of the Carradine boys, and the others had established themselves. Keith, obviously, just a couple of years prior, had a hit single with his song from the film
Here
Nashville.
we go.
Yeah,
Here we go.
IMC. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Such an awesome scene.
There you go.
There we go.
It's the one you were talking about.
Now, later, um, the following year in '78, of course, when Jaws 2 came out, you'll notice they had a killer whale that a shark had
Sure
taken a
did.
bite out of. And I'm sure that was in reaction to this movie.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm sure that had something to do with it for sure. Let's talk
Little
about
nudge back.
Keenan Wynn in this. He appeared just a few moments ago. What are your feelings about Keenan Wynn? Are you a fan of his work? I thought he was one of the great character actors of my formative years, personally.
Yeah, he's certainly great. I really like him in this particular movie. He certainly fits the role.
Oh yeah.
I forget his character's name.
Yeah, I
Do you,
can't. I'm drawing a blank on it as well. Yeah, I think he kind of gained some notoriety. He was involved with the Church of Satan around the time this film was. Anton LaVey. there's a story there. I'm not sure all the details, but I know he had an association with them that got him a little bit of notoriety there, maybe in not such a positive way, because people have people have some feelings about that sort of thing. So
here we are. Novak was the character's name.
okay,
So
gotcha.
I always thought that was a cool name. Um, but here we are establishing with Charlotte Rampling, establishing just how smart killer whales are. And it really sets it up great. Here she's showing just how
Brain,
smart these creatures are, and that they actually can communicate not just language with each other, but emotion, where they can actually just sense how the other one's feeling and whatnot. Um,
That's an old trick they pulled in the 1963 King Kong versus Godzilla. Do you remember the American version where they have that American footage inserted where they show Godzilla's brain versus King Kong's brain?
yeah, yeah.
It's not in the Japanese cut, thankfully, but it's a little awkwardly inserted, but it's the same concept that they're employing here, which is
Well,
kind of funny.
they're kind of basing it in actual science because in the '70s, I don't know if you remember, like National Geographic was really big,
Sure.
and there were I remember getting a National Geographic that actually has a plastic. It had a plastic record that you could rip out. It was like a sheet of plastic, and you pulled it out and you put it on your record player, and it would play recordings of killer whales and blue whales and all that. And I remember sitting with my sister, listening to that.
Yeah.
And so these, whales were kind of like we were talking in the King Kong video, kind of like Bigfoot. It was just we were getting more and more interested in ecological creatures,
Sure.
and this really fed into that whale craze. I think people used to buy records actually and just play them in the background to relax, like an ASMR video these days, and just listen and
Yeah.
play
Right.
whale sounds. Uh, but yes, this beautiful place where they filmed, it's actually in Newfoundland, um, in a location called Petty Harbor, which is on the upper eastern coast of Canada. And as you can see there, I mean, you can just as you watch this movie, you can smell the salt water.
Oh yeah.
And the fish and chips. It's just so.
Don't forget the vinegar.
That's right. That's right. And Charlotte Rampling, she's just so striking in this movie.
Sure. Yeah.
Just every scene.
She definitely was something to behold at that point in her career.
She has that striking beauty, but she also has such an intelligence that comes across, and it really plays off well with Richard Harris, who just really has no idea what he's dealing with these killer whales.
Yeah, that's very true. Although he will learn.
He definitely will learn. Now, Richard Harris apparently really loved this movie. And if you were to say something like it was a Jaws ripoff, apparently he would take offense at that. and he felt like it was an emotionally rich picture, which it certainly is.
I think so too, and we'd be remiss if we didn't make note that there's a connecting tissue here to King Kong in more ways than one, because they carry the I guess the subtext about the ecology, about how we're treating animals.
Right.
They do that in King Kong, as we discussed in our video on that, about uh, how we should take responsibility for those sorts of things. Whereas in the 1933 King Kong, they were basically like, the dumb old ape. He just he just
Right.
had to, it's all his fault. But it's the same thing here. They're carrying over, and that was a thing in the 1970s, is that the ecology, uh, and how we were treating other specimens in the world, I guess you would say, and how we should be more responsible. There's an underlying subtext, and it's also interesting to mention that the year that this movie was made, or released rather, 1977, was a banner year for those types of films. There was Day of the Animals,
Hmm.
which is an interesting film made by William Girdler about it's about the ozone layer being depleted, and the animals go crazy and start attacking people. There's the Empire of the Ants, and oh yeah, there's this
Kingdom of the Spiders.
Kingdom of the Spiders. That's a great one. There was a television film. It happened at Lakewood Manor, which later became retitled as Ants. And
So, and Girdler, William Girdler had the Grizzly movie just the year prior.
You're prior. That's right. Yeah. So there's a whole slate of those, and I think I'm forgetting one. I'm drawing a blank. There was one other one I had on my mind, but I'm drawing a blank at the moment. But yeah, there's a whole bunch of those around
maybe
1977.
the maybe it's the Swarm you're thinking of, Irwin Allen's big
That
disaster
was
movie.
the
That was
following year, but yeah, it's close.
78. But here you get, as you were saying, that great Morricone score, and it also just communicates exactly how these creatures operate. I mean, they're monogamous, and they stick together for life. Which when the killer whale is impacted here in just a moment, I don't want to spoil anything just yet,
Sure.
but when they break up the family, basically, it just shows how impactful.
Yeah, that's right. You break up our family, and look out. You may get more than you wish for. So yeah, it's but yeah, this is so let's talk a little bit about your first time seeing this film, where you saw it, how you saw it. I'm always curious about that.
As I recall, I saw this at a theater in a mall, and
Mm,
there weren't a lot of people there. And this movie actually came out during the initial release of Star Wars, so I think that
summer,
probably
yeah, that's right.
took a lot out of it. It was released in July of '77, and
Hmm.
just being a little kid, of course, I was fascinated with sharks, um,
Sure.
and whales, and just the whole thing. I think we actually ate at a Captain D's prior to seeing the movie, and
Yes,
they
we
always,
did.
and in the '70s they would have these salt corroded boats with the steel just with the barnacles on it, and it just looked like it was something that you drug out of the sea. And I used to always think that was so cool, and I just associate that with this movie. Um, and of course, there was that awesome poster with the John Berkey art. And here we go. We've got those horrible cries from the killer whale.
Right.
But yeah, this just all freaked me out, especially what's coming up. It still kind of freaks me out. It's very unpleasant, but it certainly sets and establishes the killer whale's desire for revenge, because it certainly
Yeah,
pisses you off as you see what's happening.
that's right. Yeah, this. I remember. Well, I didn't get to see this in a theater, although I certainly wanted to, and for whatever reason, I just never got to go. I'm sure I begged my parents, but it just didn't happen. But I did see it, and it's funny how fast the turnaround was on these films that Dino De Laurentiis did. Uh, oh, go ahead. I think you were going to say something about what's happening on screen.
Oh, no, this is just getting worse and worse, right?
Yes.
They're using obviously fake whales here for some of this, and in fact, environmentalists and animal rights groups protested because a lot of these killer whale props were being trucked in, and animal rights groups thought they were actual killer whales that were being trucked around. And but you can, it's very hard to locate the real from what's animatronic or basically a puppet. um, but this is just not going well.
No, no, no. It's true. So this is kind of the first shot has been fired. How shall we say? And it doesn't get any better.
Yeah, I believe what you were referring to was just how quick it went from theaters to TV,
That's
which
right. That's where I was going with that. Yeah, and that's where I first saw it. I think it was the fall of 1978, from if memory serves. And I can tell you for a fact that it was a Saturday night. It was a CBS Saturday night movie. They used to do those at 9 p.m. And
uh
oh, there's the baby.
mm-mm.
It was a mom.
Man, with that, when he starts raging, when that killer whale starts raging, I mean, you just know this is gonna be.
Yeah.
I mean, how unique is this movie? You just don't get this anywhere.
No, you don't. And especially with the practical, use of practical effects, obviously, and a combination, as you said, of real whales and real and but it's
Practical
all
effect.
tangible, is what I was getting at.
Oh, I still remember sitting in the theater and seeing that where he sprays it off
Yeah, and this is a
and
pretty
just.
intense film for a PG film, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. This is that one movie that I go, you took me to see this.
Well,
Oh,
I'm right
but it
there
was
with
so
you.
good. But it's
Going to
so good
see
though.
Towering Inferno at age 4. I was a year ahead of you, but that's the one that did it for me, and had a similar experience. When the elevator cable breaks and I think it's Jennifer Jones falls to her death, and I was 4 years old seeing that.
Oh,
That was talk about your kinder trauma, and yet that film was like an adrenaline shot to me, and that was the one that did it for me. So it's similar.
another movie that a Dino De Laurentiis movie that this kind of is riffing off of would be Death Wish. It's almost
Yeah,
like the killer whale's Charles Bronson getting
yeah,
revenge on his family.
and
But
isn't that another Dino De Laurentiis production? I believe. I believe Death
yeah.
Wish is one of his. Yeah, I was gonna
Hmm.
say he's riffing on his own productions. Yeah.
But this was actually written by Luciano Vincenzoni, Vincenzoni, um, who actually wrote a couple of the Man with No Name movies for Sergio Leone, um,
Right.
for a few dollars more, and The Good, Bad, and the Ugly. So like, I don't know, it's just those Italian westerns have an emotional core to them. And this just kind of has that. It just has it has more emotion than like some of those movies you were referencing before with animals. This has you can feel the need for this killer whale's revenge, and you can feel Harris's character, Captain Nolan. You can feel his desperation, um, as these two, just go at it. So there's just such
Yeah.
an emotional core to this. It's a tragedy. Um,
Yeah. It really is. It really is. But I But back to seeing it for the first time, it was the fall of 1978, and my family and I, we on a lot of Saturdays we would my dad was a record collector, so we would go record shopping because I lived in close proximity to Charlotte, which is the biggest city in North Carolina where I live, and so anyway, that's what we would do. We would scour record shops and stuff, and then catch a bite after it was all said and done. So I knew Orca was coming on that night. Long story short, and I kept badgering my parents. Let's get back. Let's get back. Let's hurry. Let's move this along. And my dad, I remember him saying, "Well, you're just going to miss the credits probably. That's, it's not a big deal." And I didn't even know what credits were. He had to explain what that was to me. And so we got there, and I actually did catch it from the very beginning, and I was able to see the whole thing, and it was really made
Ooh.
quite an impression. Yeah, there goes Keenan Wynn, unfortunately, an early dispatch.
I know.
But
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's kind of like your dad was like, "Shut up, Ralphie."
yeah,
Like,
yeah, he had a habit of doing that sort of thing, but that's a whole other story. But anyway,
oh, but look here.
yeah,
Look at just such this. This is photographed so well. Look at this shot.
yeah, well
And
edited too.
oh yeah, I always remembered he's got his imprint.
Yeah,
Apparently these animals really do have just an intelligence level and an emotional level where they can. I don't know if they would. I don't know if this would be scientifically, could actually happen, but they actually do have the emotion for revenge and um, can sometimes, from what I know, they have a tendency to toy with their prey. It's like killer whales are like really sweet animals, but when they're in feeding mode or attack mode, that they can be pretty vicious. And
don't mistake my kindness for weakness is their motto, I guess you would say.
that's right.
Yeah. So yeah, this is a powerful scene where they're having a grieving the mate and all that, and having, I guess, a de facto funeral,
Now
maybe.
look at the. Now this is all most likely with animatronic.
Yeah.
Um, the effects are great.
Yeah, that shot with the sun, they're very extremely well shot. But again, kudos to Ralph Winters. What a great editor. He
Hmm.
wrote a book about his career as an editor. I can't remember the title of it, but you can find it on Amazon. It's out of print now. I picked up a copy of it fairly cheap. It's definitely worth a read because he cut a lot of films for Blake Edwards. He edited most of the Pink Panther films, I believe, and I think The Party, and there's quite a few. Ben-Hur was one of his crowning achievements. I think he may have won an Oscar for that, the 1959 Ben-Hur. So he was a a journeyman editor, I guess you would say. He knew how to effectively put together, cut this stuff together for maximum effect. Yeah. So.
Yeah. And with that music, here's where that music's really starting to do its job
Mm-hmm.
and draw you in emotionally.
Yeah, there was I had a soundtrack album of this. Of course, I have it, on a digital copy of it now. But at one point, I had an actual soundtrack album of this. But I don't know that if it was released in America or not. I'm thinking it was only an import. I don't know. I don't. There may have been a commercial release of it, but not really sure. But
Now,
nevertheless, I had to get an import.
yeah, I think there was an expanded CD, just like what came out with
King Kong, yeah.
King Kong, but this movie, apparently the budget was $6 million, and it ultimately grossed 15 million. Now, of course, in the 70s, the tracking for box office gross wasn't, isn't all that accurate. And again, you have to take in consider inflation, the difference tickets cost then versus now. Um, it's a very large difference. So the number of tickets sold versus the gross, there's just a big variance there. But it was considered at the time a moderate success. I remember all the kids at school talking about it, especially after that airing on TV.
Oh yeah.
I'm sure De Laurentiis got a good penny for that for the television rights.
Well, that's important to point out too, because he was a very shrewd businessman. Because when he would, I think in a lot of cases he would make a deal with the networks before the film was even shot or while it was still in production. So he had already made his money back with the sale of the film to television before it had even been commercially released to theaters. So that's a way to do business. I know with King Kong he had quite a good deal with that when it went to NBC, but this one went to CBS. I remember that for sure.
Yeah.
And there was
CBS.
there was no with King Kong they had an hour of extra footage. There was no extra footage with this one. It's the film pretty much as we've seen. Also, it's interesting to note the iterations of this film on home video. How many copies of it have you had? I'm always curious about that too over the years.
Yeah, it's I had the VHS, the Paramount VHS,
Mm-hmm.
and then I had the Paramount DVD,
Mm-hmm.
and then the Umbrella release that we mentioned, and then now Shout Factory, and then I have it on Vudu as well. So
Very, very good. Yeah, I've had several iterations. I never bought the VHS. What I bought instead was the laser disc, Paramount laser disc.
oh yeah, yeah, cool.
I guess it was in the early 1990s when it was released. Oh, and we have the introduction of Will Sampson here. Let's not
Oh,
gloss
yeah.
over that. Great character actor. Obviously,
Mm,
2 years after his memorable stint in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
that's right.
And he would go on to be in another cult film, Poltergeist 2, of course. So, anyway, I was talking about this having it on Laserdisc, and it's worth noting that at that time, Laserdisc was, obviously the better picture quality because the VHS tapes were still pretty subpar. But the problem with this film in its early iterations was that because it's filmed in 2.35 to 1 aspect ratio, this is Panavision, I think, you were missing a lot of the film's image. And these are beautifully composed images that unfortunately were truncated, due to home video and the way they release these things. And obviously the television airings were the same. So you're missing literally half the picture unless you had seen it in theaters. You truly hadn't seen it, and I had not. And so the first chance that I got to see it in widescreen was in 2004 when Paramount finally issued a widescreen DVD of it. And of course,
Yeah, yeah.
I bought that, and I was able to ditch my old pan and scan laser disc, and then obviously, as you just discussed, we were able to upgrade to Blu-ray with the Umbrella release and the Shout Factory, which I probably need to, or Screen Factory. I need to pick that up. So.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. This scene here I always thought was very special. You just don't get this in every movie
Mm-hmm.
where he actually goes to a priest to ask if you can sin against an animal,
Oh
and
yeah, right, right.
the priest comes back with you can commit a sin against a blade of grass. Sins are basically against oneself. I mean, just powerful stuff.
Yeah.
Uh, and it
He's
just
got a conscience that
there's
gives you some character, idea, a little insight into his character.
some definite depth. They're just
Sure.
again, you're dealing with so many different emotional layers here, and Richard Harris does such a good job with his character here and what he's going through.
He does. He does. Yeah, I would agree. And this is, I guess I'm trying to think where he was at in his career at this point. I guess the previous year he had done the sequel to A Man Called Horse, The
Oh
Return of a
yeah,
Man Called
which
Horse.
those were pretty big back in the day.
Right? Yeah, yeah. But I know he had done that, and I'm trying to think of some other things that he had done around that time frame where he was at career-wise.
And Will Sampson actually was in it's the White Buffalo. That was which
That's
was a
right.
Dino
Dino De Laurentiis. Yeah, that's
Dino
correct.
De Laurentiis.
Yep. Good point.
So De Laurentiis was swinging for the fence with these
These
creature
animals.
features. But I don't. People say he was shrewd, but I mean, he spent a good penny on all of his films. King Kong being the best example. But if this was made with King Kong being made for 20 million and this made for 6, this must have been a very efficient, production. I guess we should mention Michael Anderson,
Right. Yes.
who directed the film, just coming off of Logan's Run, and so he definitely deserves his kudos for making this memorable movie for us.
Yeah.
And I should also mention, I always like this. This guy's kind of like Quint, he kind of looks like Quint. It's like Quint from Jaws coming after Richard Harris
That's
here,
true. Yeah.
kind
Good
of
point.
kind of bullying him. You wouldn't want to tangle with this guy. But I always I wanted to be sure I pointed out Peter Hooten, um, who plays Paul, who's the gentleman. Kind of looks like Matt Hooper. There he is. I always thought he did a very good performance, and just didn't just phone it in. He's a complex character himself, as he realizes just what kind of downward spiral Nolan and his crew are going down.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. Yeah. I was going
Uh,
to. Yeah. You're
what
talking
a
about
great
Michael. Oh, go
what
ahead.
a great I'm sorry, what a great shot right there.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Here comes trouble.
Those widescreen vistas capturing all the town in its glory.
The fin cutting through the water that was so iconic in Jaws. They're double down here with
Hmm.
some just great looking shots.
Yeah, I was going to talk about Michael Anderson very quickly. It's amazing. He just passed away 4 years ago. He was 98.
Wow.
Born in 1920. So that's an amazing. And we'll talk about quickly his filmography, some of the other movies in case anybody's not familiar with his work. He did a sci-fi film that is still fondly remembered in the hearts of many. The year before this, Logan's Run.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably one of the ones that people think of most often. And you know, some other stuff. Millennium from 1989.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
The Martian Chronicles, which was an adaptation of the Ray Bradbury novel.
Right,
And
that was with Rock Hudson, right?
Darren McGavin, yes, 1980.
Yeah, that was a
And it,
big deal when that came out.
right. And a horror tale of reincarnation, Dominique from 1979. I want to say Cliff Robertson was in that, I believe. And they did Doc Savage, The Man of Bronze. Have you ever had the pleasure of seeing that?
I've
1975.
I've managed to avoid it, but I've been fascinated by it. It seems like a very awkward movie. Like it would be like campy or something fun to watch, but I just haven't got around to seeing that one yet.
Ah,
I
well,
don't know if many people have.
I actually, a guy that I occasionally appear on his show, he's a huge fan of the Doc Savage.
Oh,
And it's
okay.
actually out there on Blu-ray. Warner Archive did a Blu-ray of it years ago, so believe it or not. It's also worth mentioning that Michael Anderson directed a Best Picture Academy Award winner, Around the World in 80 Days.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, with Doc Savage, that's one where I'm curious about it, but I just haven't got around to seeing it. Look at Charlotte Rampling there.
Oh
Oof.
yeah. Yes.
That's one thing I don't know. I don't see her falling for him, but maybe she's just lonely out there.
Yeah, it's it can be lonely
She's
out
on
there in northern Canada.
She's almost got like a Lauren Bacall vibe.
She does. That's true. I'm so glad she's still out there doing it too.
That's right.
So, yeah, there's some interesting reviews here. I don't know if you've ever gone through the critical reviews of this film that came
Yeah,
out at the
but
time.
they just they're not even, I don't even think they watched the movie. I think they were too busy comparing it to Jaws and the other, movies that were, coming out at the time to really take it seriously. But
Yeah.
yeah, the reviews are pretty unfortunate, and I say unfair and not accurate. But
Yeah.
if you wanna let folks know, but I disagree with them. This is a great movie.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. I just love reading these reviews though that came out at the time of its of its release.
All right, what's your favorite one?
Oh gosh. Um there's a there's an interesting one here from Ruth Batchelor, who was a writer for the Los Angeles Free Press, and she kind of likes this film actually.
Okay,
Uh,
we'll take that.
Yeah, she says I'm sorry, the orcas are busy mating to classical music and all seems well until Harris, full of greed, accidentally harpoons a pregnant whale. We see her miscarriage while hanging upside down. We see the fetus washed off the deck of the ship, and we see Harris' face in the tearing eye of the bereaved husband. Um, Rampling has already told us whales have memories and can be as vindictive as men, so we know what to expect. But one really doesn't expect Son of Jaws to munch away at people, and that includes everybody, but Rampling, who is probably too skinny for a whale's appetite, houses to be torn in half and boats crushed.
Wow.
Anyway, she says, let's see, I'm trying to find, because she seems to like it. There was a, um, well, anyway, she had
Well,
an interesting take on it.
I just think, oh, this is a great eerie scene with, again, beautiful photography
Oh,
and
yeah.
as you mentioned, great editing from Ralphie Winters. I
Hmm.
mean, just look at just soak in this atmosphere. Oh,
Yeah,
it's so good.
I
The
know.
tensions just build so well here.
Yeah, just I don't understand why people dislike this film so much. I really.
I think there were unlike now. I think there were so many great movies in the 70s. I mean, think about all the great movies that were released in the 70s. Um, there was something every week, and some movies just fell between the cracks. And again, as I said, Star Wars was playing at number one at the box office as this was released, and it was
Hmm.
just one of those movies. And again, you had these critics that were just like, okay, I got to do a big review for Star Wars, so there's this. Oh, it's a Jaws ripoff. Next, and it just never got the taken seriously. I don't think. And
Well, that was an interesting time period when this was released because there was a lot of films that were the hopes were not very high for Star Wars. I mean, they thought it would do okay, but nothing as to what it eventually did. And that same time period, we had The Deep, and we had Damnation Alley. I think was the other 20th Century Fox film that Star Wars was putting out there, uh, thinking that in case Star Wars didn't do very well, they had Damnation Alley as a backup. But obviously they didn't need it, and it was poorly reviewed. But we had, like I said, The Deep. The Other Side of Midnight was another 20th Century Fox film, and uh, the Sense Around epic from Universal, Roller Coaster, was actually out there around the same time too,
that's
about
right. That's
the
right.
Mad
Uh,
Bomber, yeah, with the
I think.
bombing the roller coasters.
Mm-hmm. And then you had like Black Sunday. Remember that with Robert Shaw?
Yeah, that was Christmas of the previous year, I believe. So it was about 6 months earlier. But yeah, I love Black Sunday. That's a terrific
Yeah,
film.
Christmas '77, I think.
Yeah, that's right. You're right. Yeah, 6 months later. That's right. Yeah, you are correct. I don't know why I was thinking 76, but yeah.
Christmas '76, there was Midway too. Remember
Yeah, another
Midway with
sense
Charlton
around.
Heston? Hmm. I mean, there's just so many you can't keep up with them all. Sorcerer with Roy
Yeah,
Scheider, William Friedkin film that got
yeah.
lost in the shuffle too and unfairly reviewed. That's an awesome movie.
Yeah,
Um,
I'll tell you a funny story right quick about Star Wars, and then I'll make this very short because it's not exactly related to Orca. It's just the time period in which it was released. But a friend of mine, he was a teenager at the time, working at a theater here in Charlotte, and they had booked Star Wars. I think it was in limited release, and so they were one of the few theaters in Charlotte that had it. Yeah, because the release patterns were different from what they are now. You know, they didn't splash everything over several thousand screens. And so we had one theater, Charlottetown Cinema, playing Star Wars, and they had Roller Coaster in the big theater. It was a duplex. I mean, two theaters. I mean, and
yeah.
so anyway, the big theater was wired up for Sense-Around. The one they expected everybody to go see, that was Roller Coaster. Well, of course, what happened was everybody wanted to see Star Wars, and Roller Coaster sat empty, but Universal had gone to the trouble of wiring up the theater with Sense-Around. So basically, they had this huge auditorium that was sitting empty, and the one that was about half the size was packed to capacity every single showing, and they couldn't do anything about it. There was nothing. They were contractually obligated to run Roller Coaster, and so they had lines around the block waiting to see Star Wars. But the capacity of the auditorium being so small, you know, only a limited number of tickets, and Roller Coaster just sat there for a couple of months. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I remember Roller Coaster. It was, I think we went to see that at the movies. I can remember.
yeah.
But but yeah, I mean, oh, and like we were talking in their King Kong video, Airport 77 was out.
Oh yeah,
But
that was one. Yeah.
but another great shot there.
Oh yeah. So yeah, he's gonna test the whale, putting the dummy up here. See if we can fool him a little bit. So
Yeah, apparently Richard Harris had like some personal stuff going on while making this movie. Did you read
when did
anything
he
about
not?
that?
When did he
Appar-
not? But anyway, I'm not sure. Go ahead and let's discuss that.
I just it's just been, it's online and here and there, that his wife at the time was seen with someone else, and it was in like a gossip magazine. And
Mm.
that while Harris was filming this movie, he saw photographs of her with another man on the beach, and apparently he wanted to, he was drinking a lot, and apparently as he holds the rifle here, he wanted to kind of, take care of some business in his personal life. Um, but apparently the producers managed to get him to calm down. But I wonder if that plays into just the tragic nature of his performance here, because I think he does a great job.
Oh, he absolutely does.
It,
Yeah, he brings it.
I'd like to see a movie with Captain Nolan and Orca, played by Richard Harris, and Quint, played by Robert Shaw in Jaws. I'd like to see a movie with those two guys out on a boat,
Yeah, right.
confronting some sea creature. Uh,
Yeah, yeah. That's. I know he had a very interesting life. It was a multicolored, and yeah, he was known
he
for
was
his imbibing. Let's put it that way. He was one of those legendary drinkers, along with Richard Burton and
Oliver
Peter
Reed.
O'Toole, and yeah, Peter O'Toole, Oliver Reed. And, I think Peter O'Toole outlasted them all, but they all died, you know, within a 10 to 15 year span, pretty much. But they lived a lot longer than you would have expected, considering the lives that they led. And oh, Albert Finney, I think, was in that club too. He outlasted. He just passed a couple of years ago, so he definitely had a little bit more of a stronger constitution than the rest of them. But yeah, they were known for their and Jimmy
Yeah,
Webb, who wrote MacArthur Park, has some interesting stories about Richard Harris, about how he could be just so open and welcoming one minute, and the next minute you thought that he was angry at you, but you didn't know exactly what you had done. One of those situations. So
That's how we Irish are. We can be that way. Um, and I think I just had another creature feature pop in my head from '77, Tentacles,
that's yep. Oh yeah, the Italian.
which yeah, and that one actually had some killer whales in it. So again, this just
Mhm.
got mixed up in this soup of aquatic thrillers and just never got the acclaim. But again, there's a cult following out there, and hopefully they'll find this commentary and enjoy it, and we can deliver for you. But here we have their friend. We need to give him a name. I guess Orca. We'll call him Orca.
Orca. We'll call him Orca. Why not? Because he is a killer whale,
Oh,
you know.
and here as we've been um, blabbing away here, we've got Richard Harris's character development here, where he's had an experience with a drunk driver killing his family. Um, so in a way, you could take this script, you could take this movie, and you could actually, instead of a killer whale, you could have people in it, and it would still work. You could make this like a western, a cop thriller. I mean, it's just the simplicity of the script. Just it's just really good, lean storytelling,
Yep.
and I don't know. Some of my favorite movies are like revenge movies. Death Wish would be a good one. I always like the Bond movie License to Kill
Oh
with
yeah.
the um, stuff like that.
Rolling Thunder. How can we forget that?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. William
William
Devane.
Devane. Yes. Paul Schrader script. Yeah. That's yeah, that's the centerpiece of the new Quentin Tarantino book that's out as we speak, the Cinema Speculation. That's he goes into huge. He was a huge fan of that. But yeah, there was definitely a thing going on with the revenge type films. Speaking of those and Dino De Laurentiis, this does tie because it's a Dino De Laurentiis. It ties into this. Is a forgotten revenge film he did in 1982 called Fighting Back, which is with Tom Skerritt. If you can, it's out there streaming, I believe. What a great, effective revenge thriller! It's Tom Skerritt is I think he owns a deli or something. I think he is. He's in Philadelphia, and his mother is attacked at a drugstore, picking up a prescription, and then
Oh
his
wow.
whole neighborhood is just like just riddled with crime, and he decides to start a vigilante force, getting rid of all the scum on the streets because the law is not doing anything about it. And it's very similar to Death Wish, but it's directed by Louis Teague, who made Alligator, which is another animal
Mm-hmm.
ecological horror film. And he did this 2 years after Alligator. So if anybody out there listening has not seen Fighting Back, produced by Dino De Laurentiis and directed by the great Louis Teague, who also did Cujo, of course. This was the film he made in between Alligator and Cujo.
Yeah, yeah. Now, just as this scene plays out, such great optical work, with the explosions in the background and the killer whale celebrating
Mm-hmm.
its its revenge.
Yeah. Yep. This is true. Yeah, this is
Now the killer whales sunk all the boats in the harbor except Nolan's, and they're getting it repaired, and they want to get them out there, get this over with. So these two are on path to to basically have a war against each other.
and the war is on. It's kind of like the narrative is almost like one of those Warner Brothers cartoons when you think about it.
That had to have been rough playing Bo Derek's boyfriend. Are you sure you want this role, sir?
Are you kidding me? Yeah, she was married to John Derek at that time, I believe. So,
Of course, after this, I mean, it set her up for success in 10, just a
yep,
couple years later.
That
with
was
Dudley Moore.
yeah.
It's a good midlife crisis movie.
Yeah. They it's interesting to note they say and Richard Harris was only 46 when he made this movie. He looks a little older, I have to admit. He's a little grizzled. I guess the
I
drinking will
know.
do it to you. But he performed most of his own stunts and was, they say, nearly killed on several occasions.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he must have really responded to the script, and because he
Yeah.
apparently loved this movie.
And it's interesting to note that they, modified what whales actually can do or not for this film, because whales and dolphins don't breathe automatically like humans do. So, and they sleep with half of their brain at a time. So that's something that's interesting to mention. Um, they sleep with half of their brain at a time because they need to come to the surface to breathe, is what it is. So if somebody really tranquilized an orca like Nolan did with that needle, both halves of its brain would be asleep at the same time and it would stop breathing and drown. So they kind of modified what whales do or not for this film.
Maybe the dart was a dud. It just
Those darn darts. You can't get anything that works these days.
like I was saying, with this movie getting written off as a Jaws clone. I mean, that's like, I mean, that, would you say The Exorcist was a clone of Rosemary's Baby? No, because it's a similar topic. The Exorcist might not have been made if Rosemary's Baby wasn't the hit it was, you know. So I mean,
Mm-hmm.
sure, there's a financial, you know, um, reason for the movies to be produced, but I mean, they set out to make a movie here, and
Yeah.
they did a great job. The actors are all given 110%. In fact, Charlotte Rampling's been in a lot of great movies. I'd put her performance here up there with anything. I mean,
Yeah. She's very effective.
as she's on the phone, she's not phoning it in.
True. Yeah, we were talking earlier about orcas being monogamous, and I had a list of facts here, and this is one that I'd overlooked. They actually aren't monogamous, which I did not know. The belief that orcas stay with one mate for life stemmed from the fact that the same male orcas travel with the same females. It has since been discovered that male orcas stay in a family pod with their mothers, sisters, and aunts for their entire lives. Females mate with males from other pods to decrease the chances of inbreeding. So that's how it all works out.
Well, I think they do that because like the male killer whales die like after 30 years, while the women killer whales live to be 100.
Yeah.
But what do we know? um, but oh no, here it comes. That scene.
The titular scene.
Now, do you remember in this scene? Okay, you're watching this, so you know what's going to happen. She's going to get her leg bit off. Um, do you remember the TV cut? How they handled that?
I don't. I don't. Do you remember seeing that? I mean, it
um,
was pretty. I mean, you obviously knew what had happened, but
you
obviously,
definitely. They probably kept the crunch, but maybe they didn't show the bite down. But I don't know what is it about these, like Jaws and this, which this does as well. The thing where you're sliding down to the monster waiting at the bottom,
right.
and it's so cool that this is with a stilted, a house like that.
Do you have a one sheet for this film, by the way? I was just curious.
No, I do have like, I've got like a little folder full of posters that I save on my computer, and I've always collected any art I can find. The poster for this, I remember it. There was a great ad that would show up in the back of Marvel Comics
Yep, I
uh,
remember that.
Yeah, and so like I would just stare at that, and it looked great. Um, the one sheet I don't like so much. It looks like, like an ad for Long John Silver's or something, like for some peg legs. Uh, it, it it they shrink the poster art down that John Berkey did into just a small square, and then the rest of it's white with black text. And I always wish I could see that image more. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but uh, but man, what a great poster that is with the killer whale basically leaping in the air with and then there's sailors with harpoons, and explosions. It's just a
Yeah.
great poster.
So we'll talk. I'll mention a couple of the other fish-related films that were made around, in that subsequent years, I guess you would say. Obviously, all the Jaws films, and then there's Piranha the very next year.
Yeah.
As you mentioned, Tentacles, Killerfish, 1979, Barracuda, 1978, Tenotera, The Killer Shark, 77, Blood Beach, 1980, Piranha 2, directed by James Cameron, of course, 1981, The Last Shark, 1981, Up from the Depths, 1979, Humanoids from the Deep, 1980, Island of the Fishmen, 1979, Devilfish, 1984, and Mako, The Jaws of Death, 1976, directed by William Greffey.
You mentioned The Last Shark in 1982, which was released in the United States as Great White. That
Yes.
movie just always haunts me because uh, I remember there was a kid in school that saw that movie, and they were like, "Yeah, this shark, it's got a giant mechanical shark, and it's got, it attacks a helicopter, and it's just like Jaws." And then, like, so my family, we get in the car to go see it, and it turns out the movie was pulled from theaters because of Universal thought it was too close to the original Jaws, so all the copies of it were destroyed. And we the only thing that exists now is the Italian cut of the movie with the Italian score. But they had commissioned a great orchestral score, and they have all these great ads. Of course, you can see them. They even have Percy Rodriguez, who did the Jaws commercials, voicing over,
Sure. Yes.
a creature today is out to kill, that kind of stuff. But here we are. The shit's hitting the fan.
Yep,
And this was just when I was a kid. This scared both of us, right?
sure did. Yeah. Very powerful
And it
stuff.
very well done too. Like obviously it's a miniature,
Any, yeah, right.
but that's part of the fun of watching these movies is just trying to figure out how they do some of it because there's no computers
No.
going on here.
Yeah.
Oh, it's just set up so well.
Yeah. And you wonder if that's I guess that's a real set that's been tilted, or are they just tilting the camera? I wonder.
Uh,
And there it is, ladies and gentlemen.
there you go.
So yeah.
So one of the last things you wanted to have her happen has happened. Bo Derek has only one leg now.
Yeah. Yeah. This is true. So they say when this film was playing at its initial engagement at the Fox Village Theater in Westwood, which is near UCLA, that Dino De Laurentiis stopped by the venue several times to check how much it was making, and he predicted it might outgross the film that inspired it, the original Jaws. He was always overly confident, that old Dino. By the end of its first week, it became clear not only would it not gross nearly what Jaws had done, but that it would likely not even make back its production budget, although it did, as we talked about. In response to this realization, De Laurentiis loudly and emotionally wailed to the theater's manager, "Why nobody like my wail?" So,
Harris is going full tilt here,
yeah,
and here we go.
Final act.
You just get the sense it's so cold, and you just really feel like you're on the boat with them.
Yeah, you really do. It conveys that atmosphere quite well.
And you don't get the feeling that this is going to go well either as they go out. You just you get a sense he's doomed. It's almost like a funeral procession.
And that great score by Morricone, Swelling there, to great effect. Yeah, so Richard Harris had turned down an offer to work with Ingmar Bergman and chose this film instead. I think that's worth mentioning. He had been offered the part that would go to David Carradine and The Serpent's Egg, which I think was released in '77. I think The Serpent's Egg, or '78, can't remember. But nevertheless, he always regretted, from what I understand, he regretted not turning down the offer to work with Bergman, obviously one of the legends in foreign cinema. There was a novel. I remember a book about.
Yeah, there was a novelization.
Was it a novelization, or was it an actual novel that this was based on? I can't figure that out.
Yeah, it was a novelization of the screenplay.
Okay, and did you ever read that? I was just curious.
I have a copy of it, and I'm sure I looked through it. I remember I got it when I was in college at a used bookstore.
Yeah.
It's one of those things you just grab immediately when you see it. But yeah, it pretty closely, from what I recall, follows the film. I guess a lot of folks have wondered this. Was Jaws the Revenge inspired by this movie?
Good point.
Yep,
that is a great point. Yeah. I'll talk about the killer whales they used in this film. They shot stock footage at Marine World in Redwood City, California, and the killer whales that appear in that stock footage were named Yaka. The female was Yaka, and Nepo was the male. It had been captured in 1969, and Nepo died in 1980. The male, and Yaka lived on until 1997.
Wow.
For whatever it's worth. Thought somebody might find that interesting.
I think we've got an attack coming up here.
Yes. I said entering to the intensity of the final act here.
So I think the finale of this was filmed in Malta, and
that's correct. Yeah,
there were some sets that were built, with fake ice and whatnot. But the production design did a great job, because you really feel like you're out among icebergs and whatnot there at the end. But this is a good tent scene with dynamite here.
And it's worth mentioning, too, that Malta obviously would be used as the location for Popeye just 3 years later, and those sets are still standing, constructed for the 1980 film Popeye, another Paramount release.
Isn't that like a tourist attraction or something?
It is. It is.
Oh, but right here, this is cool. There's some good shots of the killer whale coming up, and you think, oh man, he's gonna get her.
Yep.
And I love it here. He's coming up.
Effectively building tension.
I mean, that's what it's all about. That's a great little sequence there.
And those roaring sound effects, much like King Kong.
Yeah.
I guess they got those from the sound effects library or something.
I don't know. I mean, to kill a whale, do they?
Maybe they make those kind of noises. I don't know, folks.
I mean, if they had the stock King Kong roar, I would wonder what's up. But
Yeah.
That
Slightly
sounds.
different from the King Kong roar. It's not the same one, but it's similar. Yeah.
Now, I always love the music cue here, the playful. There it goes.
Yeah. So, yeah, well, I said this is the debut theatrical feature for Bo Derek, but she had actually shot another film in 1973 with her husband. I think they were married at the time, John Derek. At least they were together as a couple, if nothing else. And it's called Fantasies, and it was not issued until 1981. So what it did eventually, it got terrible reviews. It's a sex comedy or something. I don't know, Fantasies. I never saw it. I remember seeing it in video stores on the shelves, but this was the first of her theatrical films to be released.
It's okay. You can admit that you've got that. It's all right.
So let's talk a little bit about Dino's plans for a King Kong versus Orca film.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he apparently was considering anything as a sequel. That would have. Uh-oh, here we go. That kill was actually featured in the trailer.
Yeah. Spoiler.
But the King Kong versus Orca, I don't know about how far did they get with that, other than just saying it.
Well, I believe, of course, if this is to be believed, John Landis has a flair for telling stories, and he seems to embellish a lot. But John Landis says that he was offered that job to direct King Kong versus Orca after I think after he had shot Kentucky Fried Movie. I think Dino reached out to him and offered him the film, and he claims that he had said to Dino, how's this going to work? I mean, you got a 40-foot gorilla and a killer whale. How are you gonna make that work? And he said, well, we'll just to make it work. We'll make it work.
I mean, what was it going to be? Was it going to be like a prequel where you would be out at Skull Island and King Kong's kind of out doing his thing, and
I know, maybe it was an alternate universe where King Kong had never gone to New York. I don't know. Who knows?
or like it's just you could go back like prehistoric times or something, or no, like yeah, it's a prequel, like it's the 1950s, and King Kong's hanging out at Skull Island, and he's out catching fish to eat or something, and he develops basically the orcas out there, and they start fighting and develop a war against each other, maybe. Yeah, you could maybe do that. uh, I would watch it. Maybe it'd been better than King Kong Lives.
Oh, it wouldn't have took much to be better than King Kong Lives. So yeah, that was.
Although I love the score to King Kong Lives. That's got a great John Scott score.
Yep.
But that one just
Yeah.
didn't. That was a little too late on the King Kong Lives. There were some interesting King Kong sequels where I heard they didn't they use like there was a mechanical Kong or something that he fought, or
Yeah.
anyway. We better focus on Orca, but
Yep. Back to Orca.
don't get me talking about King Kong 76. I won't shut up.
Yeah, we need to stay on track. Yeah, a lot of
Oh,
smoking in this film. I'm noticing. That would have gotten you what, an R rating now, because I think the.
oh no. Um, Peter Hooten, if I'm saying his name right, actually a couple years after this played the Doctor Strange in one of those first Marvel TV movies, which I always thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah, 78. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, those. That's actually considered to be one of the better of the Marvel television films from that era. Certainly a little bit better than, say, Captain America.
I like those old 70s Marvel things.
Well, there's the nostalgia factor. I
That's the
agree.
nostalgia. Yeah. I
I'm
mean,
with you. I saw all those when they were brand new.
he has a motorcycle helmet on with
Yeah,
wings. I get
yeah.
it.
Yeah, he's a good guy, by the way. Red Brown, I friendly with him on social media. He's just such a super nice guy.
Oh yeah. So we're being taken. They're talking about basically he's taking them out further out to sea, and they're at a point where they don't have enough fuel to get back,
Hmm.
which just adds to the tension and the feeling of doom. Harris
Oh
is
yeah,
more and more realizing he is not going to survive.
oh yeah. His days are well, maybe not his days. His moments are numbered. So you might say. So.
It's a great. This just has such an epic quality to it. Almost here we're getting more. It's starting to feel more like Moby Dick.
Hmm. That it
As we
is.
see our first iceberg.
Hmm. Yep. Wonder if those are real icebergs or if they are added by the production. It does add to the feel, like you said, of the coldness and the bleakness of the. Yep.
Yeah, this is all apparently in Malta, which is not known for its icebergs. So
I was
they
gonna
must have
say,
built.
I think
They
that's a
must have.
Mediterranean climate, right? I think.
Yeah, they must have built. I don't know what they built those out of, but some of them are huge.
Yeah.
Um, but that's just great. Whereas now it would just be a computer doing it. They actually had to build it back in these days.
Hmm. Yeah, I was gonna say I didn't know. I didn't think Malta was known for its icebergs. So.
And Nolan's already talking like, well, they'll come pick you up. So he's already taken himself out of the
Taking himself out
equation.
of the equation. Yeah, that's right.
I like this look he gives where he just knows he's doomed
Yep.
right
My
here.
fate is sealed.
He now that can't be. That's got to be some. They
Maybe they're
just did a
cutting
great
footage. And
job.
see, that
It,
doesn't. Yeah. He really does look a lot older than 46, though.
I know it, man. I can't believe I'm older than him. That's
That hard living.
it's kind of interesting with Charlotte Rampling's character. She's kind of switched sides a little bit.
Yeah.
She started out with the whale. Now she's a little bit more with Nolan.
Hmm.
Again, she must be desperate.
Yep.
Well, he's about to meet the orca.
Were you on pins and needles when it got to this point? The first time you saw it, wondering about what was going to be the
Oh
ultimate
yeah.
fate of. Yeah, I was too. I was too. I was wondering
I
what's
mean,
gonna.
this is just great aquatic adventure. I mean, what do
Yeah.
you get better than this, other than of course, Jaws? But I mean, this is good stuff. I'd lump this Jaws. I like John Huston's Moby Dick with Gregory
Sure.
Peck. Um, I like The Deep. Um, the Island. I actually like The Island.
Yeah, Michael Ritchie directing.
I
Yeah,
mean,
that's.
those are some good aquatic thrillers.
Mm-hmm.
And I like Jaws 2. I think Jaws 2 is underrated, actually. I
Yeah.
actually, I actually just spoke with Gene Coulter, who did the iconic water ski boat explosion. She was the
Mm-hmm.
driver of the boat. I had a wonderful conversation with her. If anybody out there might want to check that out.
I did. I haven't gotten around to that either, and I need to do that.
Peter Hooten, say goodbye. That's a big loss because all the main characters cared about him, and now they're. But the finale to this is just so good. I kind of wish the movie was maybe a little bit longer and there was a little bit more cat and mouse between them. Sometimes I kind of feel like the movie ends a little too soon.
It does. Yeah, they cut to it. They get to it. Let's Ted Moore, who photographed this, I was just noticing he also shot Dominique for Michael Anderson in Martian Chronicles and Clash of the Titans. He did
Oh,
that as well as Sinbad and the Eye of the Tiger the same year as this.
man, Clash of the Titans, how great was that when you were a
Yeah,
kid? That
true.
Medusa scene, that used to
Yeah,
scare me to death.
he's a good cinematographer. Passed away, and he did a great science fiction film in the early '60s, The Day of the Triffids, 1963.
Oh
I was a big
yeah,
fan of that one too. And
yeah,
as
that
we
was
said,
Day of the Triffids used to be when VHS first came out. It was one of those. I guess it
public
was.
domain titles.
Well,
I know what you're talking
yeah,
about.
I get that, and Phantom of the Opera,
Yeah, right,
bunch of silent movies, and Godzilla versus Megalon, big stack of them.
right.
Get them for
Yeah,
like $2 a
but
piece.
right. Yeah, it was a big deal because VHS tapes were $79, $89, and that was actually the first VHS tape I ever owned was Day of the Triffids because I picked it up for $10 at a
Yeah,
local
yeah,
department store. So yeah, but again, a film that's grossly
that's a good one.
represented on home video because it's shot in CinemaScope and it's underrepresented. It needs to be restored. I think there's somebody that's been working on that for years and they haven't. It's still not completed. I would love to see that done, but anyway.
Tomorrow will be the day.
Yeah. So Ted Moore shooting a lot of the James Bonds, as we said, Doctor No, From Russia with Love, Goldfinger, Thunderball, yeah,
Man with Man
Diamonds
with a
Are
Golden
Forever, Man
Gun.
with Gold
Yeah,
Gun, Live and Let Die. All of those are Ted Moore shot films. So he was a busy guy, that director of photography of this film.
it seems like there's a lot more. Now you can tell this is in Malta with that. You can tell it's a fake iceberg, but this all looks still great. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, I mean, look at that. It's almost like the wall in King Kong. The craftsmanship to make those giant icebergs. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. Good old Dino, sparing no expense. He probably reused those in some other production later on. Put them in a warehouse. We'll use them later.
But just yeah, but what I was saying is he must. This movie seems to have just some nicer photography than a lot of those Bond movies, and I love the Bond movies, but like this just seems to have a bit more visual flair to a lot of the scenes.
Yeah. A little more panache. Yeah, I would tend to agree. Yeah, it's yeah, Ted Moore died in 1987, so he was is I think 72. So he didn't unfortunately get to continue working into the 1990s. I would have been interested to see what kind of work he would have done then, but
That's cool. The killer whale moving the iceberg.
mm-hmm.
I'm taking over. We're going back.
Richard Harris almost looking like Nicholson in The Shining.
True.
he is
True.
he
Very
is
good. Very good
check
observation.
checking out a little bit here. He's
Nolan, there's an iceberg coming towards us. It's moving sideways against the current.
so all of those icebergs were man-made.
Start the engine.
Amazing when you think about it. the technical. I mean the carpentry department got busy, I guess. For
That's a great shot, the way they've got that
yeah.
composed.
Yep.
SOS. SOS. We'll leave our signal on automatic.
And here you really feel for the whale here, and it's a great shot. And I guess this is an animatronic killer whale that rises here,
Mm-hmm.
but this is just a great, the way they shoot this when he comes up, and you really feel it. Oh,
I just knew when
yeah.
I was a kid that Richard Harris was going to triumph. He was gonna get the fish, and everything was going to be okay.
Get the girl.
Get the girl, get the fish, and the fish was going to be taken care of, and I just knew he was going to sail off into. It was going to be a happy ending. I was not expecting what ultimately happened, the fate that befalls his character, and I was actually kind of sad. I remember as a kid when he meets his actual fate. I don't know what your reaction was. I mean,
But
so
you
you
kind of,
could make an argument and say he had it coming.
you also knew Will Sampson was going to get it somehow, and
Right.
obviously he just.
Bought the farm under
So
a.
yeah, we're in a mess here. So the boat's sinking. We're stuck on just a piece, a glacier. This is all just so well done,
Yeah.
and it looks great. It's just so, it's photographed so well.
Hmm.
Just has a great cinematic quality to it.
It does.
Look at that. And the music's just so, like, it's not melodic at all. It's grating, and it's
Hmm.
just building the tension.
Yep.
Here we go.
Did you feel like he deserved his ultimate fate? Did you have any
Oh,
sympathy for his?
I'm like getting all engrossed. I didn't want to see him die because he regretted what he did.
Yeah,
You
that's the way
know,
I felt.
um, but yeah, I mean I guess that's how it goes. I mean, if you're a drunk driver and you hurt someone, and after the fact, yeah, you might regret it, but
Hmm.
you should have known better. But this is also good. Look at that. Oh, and I remember you were talking about seeing this I remember this in the theater, just how epic this looked on a big screen. I mean, you felt like you were there. And here comes a great shot of the killer whale,
Hmm.
animatronic. Look at that.
Yep. Totally works.
What in the hell are you?
Edited for maximum impact and scored for maximum impact. So.
And acted the maximum
And
impact.
acting. That's right.
I mean, everything's working here. Now, of course, when he jumps on the iceberg, this is a little too jawsy, but you got to do it.
Yep.
Look at that. So awesome. I'd love to see, like, how they set that up, how they made that shot happen.
Yeah.
And there's Harris doing his own stunt work.
Yep. You can tell.
Oh, this was the first time you ever saw this movie. This was so intense. You're like, what is he going to do? It's almost like the killer whale's trying to figure out, okay, I got him. What am
Hmm.
I going to do with him?
That's right.
Am I gonna eat him? Am I gonna just drag him down? Let's see. And of course, he does what I wasn't expecting.
I don't think any of us were expecting this when we saw it the first time. I think that was a bit of a surprise for all of us.
And that music just building the tension.
Yep. And doing quite a good job at it.
And you can see there's Harris going up and down there.
Oh, yeah. No doubt.
Whoa.
And there he goes, folks. That might have been a stunt person. He went sailing through the air, but yeah, I was very sad. I remember being about 7 years old seeing this, and I was sad for the guy. I wanted him to pull it off.
This is not Free Willy.
Nope.
Yeah, it's spooky.
And that music and his body just floating. That imagery really, as a child, I was a very sensitive child anyway. So seeing this,
Yeah.
just played right into my deep emotional center.
Sure. I always like this exchange between these two, you know.
Yeah.
And Charlotte Rampling, as far as her acting, there's no dialogue but conveying so much emotion, and it's great.
Yeah. I was going to say the sequel should have been another 90 minutes of her trying to get out of there.
Yeah, yeah.
Home. There you go. The helicopter. I forgot. The helicopter does show up.
So here's the deal. At the end here, of course, they go and play the music. Now, the killer whale is actually, from what I understand, it took me years to realize this. He's swimming deeper into the ice to where he's basically going to kill himself.
His mission is accomplished.
Is that what he's doing?
I think that you may be onto something. That his mission
So
may
he can't break through. He's going deeper and deeper
Right.
where he's not going to be able to. He's just like, okay, I'm done.
I think you might be right. Yeah, he's yeah. There's a and there the credits roll, folks. And the vocal version of the theme appears.
Now, I'm not a big fan of the vocal version, I gotta say.
I don't either.
It's a bit much.
I'm not either.
I would much rather hear just the orchestra playing it. But yeah, so he goes and kills himself. I had never picked up on that until, shoot, I think I heard it on the commentary.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of you have a mission, you accomplish your mission. It's like, what do you have to,
But that probably doesn't contribute to the movie's success. Just in an age where everybody was like ready for Star Wars and something more a little upbeat. Man, we got both of our leads. Like the Orca itself gets killed, Nolan gets killed, the whole crew gets killed.
I mean, the entire cast really.
I mean, this movie was not playing around.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't, and that's it's that's it. Well, we were coming out of an era of filmmaking from the early to 70s up until I guess when Star Wars came around. Well, Rocky was the one that did it really. Everything was kind of a downbeat ending. That was kind of the way that films were. Films, and then Rocky comes around, and and that kind of turned things around, and things were never quite the same. We didn't see those kind of films, and so this film's ending kind of is a relic from an earlier part of that decade.
Well, if you're out there watching, I'd like, we'd love to read your comments and see, how you remember the movie and, what you liked about it. And also, do you think that's what the killer whale was doing there at the end? Was he just going to go drown himself? But on that note, we've had a lot of fun watching this, and hopefully we'll, do this again. But yeah, please leave your comments on Orca, the killer whale. Adam, You can be heard on Movie Geeks United. Any other appearances you want to let everybody know about? Where else can folks find you?
Well, I've recently appeared on the Culture Cast. I did an episode. I was asked to be a guest on there. I did an episode on Harry and Tonto, which is one of my favorite films of the 1970s, and you can find that on the Culture Cast, which is on just about all the major platforms. And so that's other than my regular Movie Geeks United duties, which we do a rundown of all the physical media releases, DVD, really just Blu-ray and 4K. We do that once a month over there. We'll be taping an episode. We usually do it at the end of the month, where we cover the previous month's releases. And so we'll probably be doing one pretty soon for the month of November. And so we do one of those a month. And occasionally I will do the anniversary show and have somebody on, a cast member or somebody related to the production of some films that are celebrating anniversaries. I haven't done any here of late, but you can find some of my work. As we talked about before, the Summer 42 50th anniversary reunion, I was able to put that cast back together last year for 50th anniversary reunion. And so I'm kind of proud of that. Not because of anything I did, but just because I was able to get them together and tell their stories. And that was pretty wonderful because I'm such a huge fan of that film. So,
Yeah, Summer of '42 with Jennifer O'Neill. That was a big movie. That's great that you were able to get everybody together for that. Um, so, well, this has been fun. Anyone out there listening, if you can think of any other kind of movies you might like to hear me and Adam talk about, feel free to leave a comment. Be sure to subscribe and like the video so others will be able to find it. And we appreciate you hanging out with us. Any final words, Adam?
No, we just like you said, I echo your sentiments. Appreciate everybody listening, and I hope you find something here that maybe you haven't found in previous commentaries. Just delighted to know that there are still people who think of Orca in positive terms as opposed to the negative critical reception that it received at the time of its release. So that's good to know.
Yes, yes. Be sure to add it to your collection. And well, anyway, thanks again, everybody. Have a good rest of your day. Bye bye.